Yo, YouTube, what's going on? It's your boy Salvation Elite. We are back with a video, guys, and today, man, we're doing a CoD Q&A, going through all of the biggest, baddest, best questions that you guys brought up and made happen. So I appreciate all the submissions for all the questions. Basically, if your question doesn't get in, it's because it was very similar to another question, or your question was very similar to something that we're gonna be talking about in the Best of 3 podcast coming out tomorrow night, or it was something very similar to a video I'm going to be doing soon. So with those things considered, we got a pretty good set of questions here that we're going to be going through. I'm very excited. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Let's go. On Twitter, Keishi Music asks, most underrated player in the league, or a player that hasn't shown their full potential due to not being surrounded by a good team yet. His vote's Kismet. Dude's a freak on the sticks. I mean, off the top of my head, the first guy that comes to mind is Pristini on Mutineers. I mean, we've only seen like 2 games from him so far because they weren't at London. It'll be really interesting to see what goes down here in Atlanta. But Pristini's the first guy that comes to mind because I feel like he's a nasty player, but he's been surrounded by fantastic players on United last year, and he's on a team that isn't talked about too much now in the CoD League. So that's kind of the thought that comes to mind off the rip. I mean, the other guy that legitimately I think is so freaking good, but like somehow the public doesn't put him on the same pedestal. This is gonna sound stupid, but Octane is so freaking good at this game. Everyone knows he's good, but I don't think enough people recognize him as insane. So far this year, he's been dropping mad numbers, and the rest of his team has been absolutely getting smoked. I just think this year, especially, Octane's underrated because of the situation with Seattle as well. Like, he's not getting the quote-unquote respect he deserves because Seattle's playing bad. So that would be the other, like, kind of left field weird answer. But Pristini really is the answer for that one. VeniTheGamer. Veni asks, do you know the best way to be noticed when being young? Weird way to say it, Veni, but I get what you're trying to say. I've talked about this in some videos in the past, but I think the best way to get noticed, it's really just a mixture of networking and content. Like, by networking, I mean like through Discords and Twitter, and then of course content is streaming and YouTube videos to build your own brand as a player. Gizmo on Discord asks in a similar kind of style here, what age should you stop trying to go pro? Kind of a weird question. I think it's really different for each individual person, and it can vary depending on a lot of different circumstances. And it can vary in a lot of different circumstances. If you have the means and you think you have the natural talent to be able to have a chance to go pro, then it's worth pursuing. To be fair and like true to like the origin of this question, I kind of get what you're trying to say. Like, yo, if I'm 22 years old, should I really try to go pro? Or if I'm 23 years old, should I be trying to go pro? It all varies on how close you are to going pro. Like, if you're 22 years old and you're finishing top 32 in open brackets and like you still feel like you have untapped potential that's still there, then of course you can be pursuing it. There's just so many variables with this question that come to mind right off the rip, which makes it really difficult for me to answer it. Like, if I'm just gonna give like a straight age number, I don't know, I would say maybe like 22 is, if you haven't really turned the corner by 22, you may have missed the bandwagon. It is hard to say, but to give a broad answer, I guess I'll say 22. I don't know. Brian Witt on Twitter asks, what changes do you think need to be made for kill streaks to be able to be implemented into competitive play, or do you think they have no place? I'm a big fan of score streaks, or kill streaks, or however you want to say it, preferably score streaks. Pros don't play with them in this game because there aren't a good assortment of streaks to use. So in the past, we've always had like a lightning strike and a hellstorm. Basically, we're like guaranteed streaks in CoD no matter what. This year, with how they've switched up how the streaks work, where you can only use 1 5 kill streak, you can only use 1 6, like, stupid. So now you really only have the cruise missile as a real competitive option. Pros hate any streak that isn't manually controlled, and they hate any streak that is too powerful or too good that can get like 5 6 7 kills. Pros hate that, and I hate that as well. I don't really think there's a place for that in competitive CoD necessarily, but I think hellstorms and like lightning strikes are always really fun. And in this game, they're a little bit too cheap. Like, it's too easy to get, I think, in a lot of ways. Score streaks were in a pretty good spot in Black Ops 4 in the end, when it was pretty tough to get them, but when you got them, they would make a difference. I really liked BO4's streak setup. And then World War II's was decent when they fixed the scoring, because before it was way too easy to get as well, and that was incredibly frustrating. But the thing about World War II streaks is they were like really, really good. The what was it called? Like the airplane strike? I can't remember what it's called. There's definitely a balance in there where I think there's a good medium or a good consensus point that pros could find. Fortunately, I just don't think I see a world where pros use streaks in Modern Warfare. Michael Amber on YouTube asks, do you see CDL adding more teams in the coming years, or just stick with the status quo? I'm pretty confident that eventually down the road we'll for sure have more teams in the CDL. It's hard to imagine that many more soon, maybe 2 next year to like knock us up to 14 or something like that. And then after that, maybe you add another 2 to get us to 16. And then it might be a while before we see more teams after that. It'll definitely be interesting to see what cities get added in, because it could be basically anything at this point. I would assume like a San Francisco, and then maybe like another Texas team. Then you could throw in like a Boston or a Philadelphia or like a Washington DC type team, but maybe something like that. The Blue Fringe on YouTube asks, where's the best source for COD League player stats? So this year it's a little bit messy since COD Stats GG is MIA because they all got hired to work for teams. It's Easy Mac on Twitter, does a lot of good stat stuff, and he has spreadsheets that he posts publicly, so I've been using those for videos. Latent Quinn asks, out of all the CDL game modes, hardpoint, S&D, Dom, which game mode do you believe to be the most important for team success? Good question, good question. I would 100% say hardpoint is undoubtedly the most important game mode, just because if you think about it, you're guaranteed you have to play one of each game mode. But if you lose one of those game modes, what mode are you playing next? You're playing hardpoint, and then you're playing S&D. I would definitely rank them like hardpoint up here, S&D down here, and then Dom like down here. Obviously, Dom's important, but like at the end of the day, hardpoint is where it's at to win championships nowadays. You just gotta be good at it. Frog for Life asks, do you think we could/should have limits for weapons like they have with grenade quantities or GAs, like 2 smokes and stuns per team? We could limit each team to like 1 M4, MP5, etc. I don't know about that. I mean, it would create for some weird dynamics. Like you'd basically like in hardpoint, you'd have to run like an MP5, an M4, an MP7, and the M13 and the P90, right? Like that would just be weird and like create for like inconsistencies and imbalance. And whoever had the MP5 would just inherently be better because they had the better gun. So I don't think it would really make that much sense, but it would maybe be more interesting to watch. But as a competitor, it'd be beyond frustrating. Deadeye on Twitter asks, after playing the game quite a bit, do you think Dead Silence would be better as a perk? Or do you like how it is now where you have to pick the proper time to use it? Oh, man. It's tough. In Dom, I think it'd be better if DS was a perk. In Hardpoint, I think it'd be better if DS is a perk. In Search, though, I actually really enjoy having to use the DS at a specific time. It feels like a power-up. It adds for another element of strategy, in my opinion. And I've been really enjoying the DS as a field order. Search, it's great. Dom, Hardpoint, I think it should be a perk, which is really unfortunate and not an ideal situation in either way. So that's kind of where we're at, though. Isaiah Smithers on YouTube asks, who's the underdog team in the CDL in your opinion? Man, it's definitely tough right now because of like, you know, people would have said Paris before. That would have been a pretty common underdog pick, but now they don't feel like an underdog. So I think I would say the Florida Mutineers, going along with my underrated Pristini take. I think the Mutineers are probably the most underrated team right now as well. Let's go with some Mutineers. Bash_BO3 on Twitter asks, what's the name of your podcast and why is Best of 3 the best podcast to ever exist? That's a fantastic question, Bash. It's crazy that you wouldn't know that, considering you're a co-host of the Best of 3 CoD Esports podcast that airs every Tuesday night. What? That's crazy. Who would have thought? But for real, tomorrow night, Tuesday night, the Best of 3 CoD Esports podcast, which is the podcast where we talk about all things CoD Esports. It uploads every Tuesday night on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. So check it out. I really do appreciate it. Grizz NC on YouTube asks, tips on how to get over the mental battle in comp or GBs. I'm assuming you're talking about like dealing with frustration, just that type of like mental battle in itself with yourself. Don't let judgment affect your play. Like if you think, man, these guys are gonna think I suck or like whatever it is, bro, it's all about getting better at the end of the day and like accepting that you're playing to improve instead of playing to win. Like if a win in your mind is that you got better at the game, that's how you're going to improve the fastest. And so that's where I've always been at with like the mental battle, is like if you continually remind yourself that this is about getting better, it's not about winning, and it's about improving as a team, that's how you're going to enjoy yourself the most and probably even find the most success overall. Insane on Discord asks, when will the EU tournament happen and how can we enter? Like how will it work? Eventually down the road, I'd love to do a community EU tournament. Obviously it never happens. I think that's what he's asking about here. I don't know when it would happen. It would hopefully be sometime sooner than later, but at the end of the day, like I don't think we'd have a big enough pool right now to make an EU tourney really happen. And so it just comes down to a numbers game about whether or not it would actually be able to be feasible. So that's kind of where we're at with it right now. But unfortunately, it's still probably a little ways out. George Elias on YouTube asked a really tough question. Make your dream team for Modern Warfare so far. Oh, man. Oh, my goodness. Okay, so let's go through this. All right, obviously Octane and Simp have to be on the list. So that's 2 down. We got our AR, we got an SMG. I mean, there is like a 4 SMG meta on half of these maps right now, so you kind of have to go for at least 3 SMGs and then a flex that is good at SMG. So I would say a BZ as well, because a BZ. So now we got a BZ, Simp, and Octane. Now we need 2 more. We have no Huntsmen players yet, so maybe you go like Envoy and Gunless to make a pretty nasty team. I mean, an Octane Simp, a BZ, Envoy, Gunless team, that'd be pretty crazy, and I'm 100% down for that. So why not? That's my dream team. Dawson Schrader on YouTube asks, what up? Do we know if the CDL will stay with PlayStation come the 2020 release? So there were some rumors that the CoD League would transition to PC and be a controller with PC esport after this year. That was the rumor in this off season. So we don't really know for sure whether or not that will happen. It probably all depends on how much PlayStation is willing to offer to make it happen. So it's definitely hard to say, but honestly, I think it might move to PC after this year. X on Discord asks, any tips on how to join a good team? This is kind of similar to like the how to get known question that Veni asked earlier in the video, but basically at the end of the day, you have to network on Discord and Twitter and be willing just to play with people to get to know them or test out how they play. It's not an easy process right now in the COD world. It's unfortunate that it's not as easy as it should be, but finding Discord servers, which of course you can join our Discord server down in the description below. And there's a lot of Twitter pages that'll like retweet that you're a free agent or looking for a team or looking for teammates. And there's a lot of Twitter accounts that you can find Discord links through as well. Of course, the Comp COD Reddit, gamebattles.com, of course, you can like look for teammates there as well. So those are kind of some of the basic options for figuring out how to find a good team. At the end of the day though, creating those relationships is your best bet to find a good team. T-Hands on Discord asked, did you ever hear the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise? Wow, that is a surprise to be sure, but a welcome one. T-Hands on Discord asked, did you ever hear the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise? Why, yes. Yes, I have. That's a surprise to be sure, but a welcome one. Wow. T-Hands asks a completely irrelevant, not COD related question. Did you ever hear the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise? T-Hands on Discord asks, did you ever hear the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise? Wow. That question is a surprise to be sure, but a welcome one. Yes, I have. Primetime YouTube on YouTube asks, so I have a bunch. Do you like the new budget Katie Adderall feelings testing or no because it makes good entertainment? Are you like most and hate BR, your Astro audio settings? You can pick one or more. The budget Katie, I mean, I think Lottie's a really good host. She's just trying to get acclimated to the COD scene right now. So over time, I think she's going to be really good, but it's going to take her some time to get used to the COD scene. I mean, for when Katie first started, she was struggling at first and people weren't sure if she was going to be good. I know for a fact Lottie's really good at her job. She was great in Halo, so I'm pretty confident she'll be pretty great by the end of the year. Though when it comes to like the whole Adderall thing that I was talking with like Killa in the article or whatever, I mean, it definitely sucks. At some point, they got to start testing for it probably. But I mean, at the same time, it's like if everyone's doing it, is anyone doing it? And if no one's doing it, isn't everyone doing it? Right? Put Barry Bonds in the Hall of Fame. Fancy asks, do you think that the new BR mode will affect Modern Warfare positively or negatively? I mean, overall, I think positively. I'm pretty excited to see how it plays. I know the rumors and leaks kind of said it plays like a PUBG style, a little bit slower, more tactical, which in my opinion is really fun. I loved PUBG. So I'm excited to see how it goes. I don't think it can hurt the scene. It can only help it. So let's see what happens. Haven asks a very interesting question because it's not exactly the same as the other one. Created God Squad players not from Atlanta or Chicago. Haven said his is GodRX, Octane, Illy, Asim, and Frosty, which is a decent squad for sure. So I would take Octane, of course, for sure. Then at that point, maybe you reunite him with the 100T squad. You do like a Slash or Kenny thing, but then you're leaving out Dashy. So it's like, well, okay, but then should I have Dashy on the team? The guy that comes to mind for sure is Dylan. I want Dylan on this team. So I got Octane and Dylan. I've got a God SMG. I've got a God AR. So we're in pretty good shape off the rip. Then from there, man, this is tough, but I think I would honestly, I'm going Pristini, Attach, and Dashy, I think. So I'm going to go overall Octane, Dylan, Attach, Pristini, and Dashy as a team. A Dashy could like flex. We could run 2 M4s on some situation. It could work out. Dashy can run an MP5. Why not? You know, he's good enough to make it happen. Why not? And that team would be disgusting and I wouldn't lose maps, let's be honest. The final question is, do you think that competition in the scene is at its highest level it can be, or like the highest level ever? I would say it probably is. I mean, now that we've limited the league down to 12 teams, 12 starting lineups of 5, there's a lot of competition going around in the scene right now. The AM scene is stacked. There's some really, really good players at the top of the AM scene right now. And even some good players in the AM scene are struggling to make it happen. So it's like, yes, 100%. This is the best talent we've ever seen in competitive Call of Duty, and we're in a pretty good spot right now. So I hope you guys enjoyed this Q&A. It went a little bit longer than I thought it would, actually, but overall, it was a pretty good conversation, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you guys did, like, comment, favorite, subscribe. I really do appreciate it. And as always, guys, more videos are coming out soon. Best of 3 podcast Tuesday night. Another video coming out Wednesday. I head off to Atlanta on Thursday, and then surprise, I'm going to Paris next week for the amateur event. Not even the actual pro league, but the amateur event's going on in Paris, and I'm working it. So yes, it's gonna be a pretty busy few weeks here for me. So I really appreciate it. But as always, remember what's Faze Elite, and we'll see you next time. I'm out.